Hello, everyone, and brought to you by Next Home Experience, the market leader. Get looped and get sold with Next Home Experience. The dulcet tones of Joe Castiglione gracing our airwaves yesterday for a Can You Believe It? Good old Civvy. Red Sox sweep the Yankees. Boy, World Series, here we come, baby.
Yeah, the evolution of Cibby from Edgar Renteria chopping one back to the mound in St. Louis in 2004. Certainly well worth a Can You Believe It in that moment. And most of the times that Joe has doled it out over the years since then, can you believe it to be 10 games under 500?
Yeah. Here's what we have coming up in today's show. We're going to talk some NBA and the rumors that are swirling with free agency tipping off tomorrow. We'll have Adam Kaufman join us of ESPN Radio to talk all kinds of things. We'll have a Sports Center weather forecast as well. Second hour of the show, we'll have our drive polls. We'll have a Sports Center weather forecast again. And then, Mark, you had the chance to sit with Bob Nightingale earlier today from USA Today to talk about baseball, I would assume.
Yes, we did talk baseball, mostly Red Sox, entirely Red Sox, really, outside of just a couple of thoughts on the American League. I mean, the state of the junior circuit is that the Red Sox entered the weekend second to last in the league standings, American League 1 through 15. Red Sox were number 14. Now, coming out of the weekend, they're only number 12, so they're still only fourth from the bottom. However, 4.5 games out of that third wild card, so there's only, 3-4 teams, I think, league-wide over 500. Like, it's pretty rough out there, pretty brutal, and that landscape is leading at least a portion of this fan base to believe that they're still in it.
Yeah, I think I've come to the conclusion that the extra wild cards are not for me. I don't like them.
Well,
it's too much. We're rewarding bad teams.
And it also, I think, takes away from the trade deadline because so many teams are hesitant to make a move. They don't know if they're in it. They don't know if they're out of it. Do you want to be buyers? Do you want to be sellers?
Feels like they're in it.
Every year almost since the third wild card was brought in, I don't know, I want to say like 21, 22.
Somewhere in there.
22, I think, because 21 was still the wild card series that the Red Sox played against the Yankees, right, at Fenway?
It feels
right.
They
had them in for that game, so must have been that next year. But ever since then, like, just think about the Red Sox at the deadline. They've pretty much botched every deadline because they don't know which lane to pick. They don't know if they're buyers or sellers.
Yeah, and of course, this is going to make them believe that they can do whatever they want. Whatever your heart desires, young Red Sox
Greg
team.
Breslow, he has been yelling from the rooftop, shouting that they're only a run away. Now, granted, listen, I had a great time over the weekend watching them take 4 games against the Yankees.
Sure. I
still, in the back of my mind, was trying to remain relative or grounded in reality to the fact that a 4-game sweep would take them from 14 under to 10 under, and from last place in the division to last place in the division. Like, not a whole lot changed there.
Right.
They knocked off 2 teams of the 8 in front of them, or whatever, in the wild card standings. It was a fun time to watch, but you don't have any grand illusions of what's going to come of this season, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
And, not to cut you off, but I just mean, and if you have those grand illusions, remember 2 of the previous 3 games going into the series were the quote-unquote worst losses of the season at Colorado.
Right. When
you just botched away games in a manner that they tried to again in the 9th and 10th inning last night between Chapman and Abreu and some shoddy defense. So, it's already a season-long 4-game win streak. Probably should be riding a 7-game win streak right now. And that isn't even close to what this team needs to put together to turn around the year. You need a legitimate 10, 12-game streak. And I'm sorry, Nate Eaton's a good spark plug, but when you're relying on him at the top of the lineup and Anthony Siegler to turn in good at-bats at the bottom of it, and this guy Che Chang, or whatever his name is, who started 3 straight games since coming up at shortstop, he was the guy who had the crucial sac fly to tie the game last night. All these things are not conducive to a streak necessary to get the Red Sox back into it.
Yeah, I mean, just look at Mickey Gasper. He was the spark plug, and now what?
AAA, baby. Sorry, we're too good for you.
Right. We'll have Sox props before we get to buzzer beaters tonight as well. Red Sox baseball, they're taking on the Nationals. The Nationals, they hit the ball
sneaky,
hard.
Yeah, they do.
Is what I'm going to say. Ranger Suarez on the mound for the Red Sox. The Red Sox starters, by the way, and I saw this from Bob Nightingale, have an 11-game stretch that they haven't seen in a very long time in a Red Sox uniform.
Consecutive starts now, 11 in a row. Suarez trying to make it a dozen tonight. That's the longest streak since, I think, the mid-'80s, and matches the second longest since the early 30s.
Yeah, I want to say it was 1988 was the number he put out there, but of basically, good outings.
It's remarkable
quality starts.
I bring up this stat in the conversation with him, but they are now 33-17 when allowing 3 runs or fewer this season. You extrapolate that out over a 162-game sample size, that is a 107 win pace. So if this lineup can just scratch out 3 damn runs a night, the Red Sox are winning better than 2 out of 3 games when you give them that opportunity, yet they can't do it.
Not on a regular basis. So that's your show here for today. Let's stick with the Red Sox, though. Again, they did get the sweep, and kudos to them for doing so. Some players are starting to show signs of life. Maybe Caleb Durbin. Maybe.
He's having a great month. At this point, it is a good month. He's hitting .325 for the month, 5 homers. I think he's up to a dozen RBI after knocking in 2 last night. We knocked him as long as we could, but you got to give him credit for having a good month. Sure,
and you hope that he continues to do that and that he doesn't turn back into the pumpkin that he had been.
That being said, I think he is an indictment on how bad the coaching is around the Boston Red Sox right now. I'm not talking about Chad Tracy, but everything else underneath him on the staff, because Caleb Durbin turned to some outside influence, some third-party analytic coaching place in the city to get back, not ChatGPT, but something else to get his swing right, because clearly 2 months of listening to the Red Sox hitting coaches wasn't doing it for him.
Yeah.
And since going to that place at either the end of May or the beginning of this month, he's been a different hitter at the plate.
Yeah. And I think, listen, 4 wins against the Yankees, you take that anytime. But watching some of those games, and they would repeatedly on the screen put up the graphic of the walking wounded that are the New York Yankees.
Of course, you're getting them without Judge. You're getting them at an opportune time.
No Stanton. You're looking at them and you're thinking this is like a mirror image of the Red Sox right now in terms of what they're putting on the field, because they're just missing a bunch of pieces. And so on a nightly basis, the people that they're starting are people that are like Ahmed Rosario. That's
they're using up their bench pieces right now in the middle of the lineup.
So it's Jose Caballero, those are Rays players.
Being forced to play with Anthony Volpe, even though they don't really want to.
Yeah. And so you look at that and you think okay, well, that kind of sort of makes sense as to why maybe the Red Sox were able to scratch that away. And you only can control what you can control. And they did that and they got the sweep against them. But Nationals are a good baseball team tonight. This will be a good test. They're still at home.
Weirdly good on the road are the Nationals. They have the second worst home record in baseball after the Red Sox. 17 home wins to Boston's 16. But they're 26-17 on the road this year. They do a bulk of their winning away from the nation's capital.
Yeah. They their MO is they can hit the ball really hard. Their pitching is...
They've got one good pitcher, and after that, it falls off real quick.
Yeah, and I don't know when you may or may not see him. It's certainly not tonight where they have Miles Mikolas going 2-6 with a 5.24 ERA. Although I think this year that NL pitchers against AL teams are having significantly more success than they do against the NL teams, which makes sense.
It makes sense. The AL is a bad product.
Yeah, it certainly is. Let's hear from Sonny Gray. So last night had a no-hitter for a big portion of the game. Afterwards, talking about fan support and how important that is to this club. Have you noticed, by the way, his hat, when he's going well, it's a little CC Sabathia.
Turns into a little bit of a dog out there on the mound.
And sometimes I like to think that his jersey gets one button more unbuttoned when he's doing well.
I think it's down to 2 buttons because that was the case last night. He was
you could see a lot.
He was like CC Sabathia and Jake Peavy all rolled into one last night, showing off the chest hair and the crooked bill.
I'm telling you right now, though, in all seriousness, this might have been the worst thing that could happen to this Red Sox team, because it is the Yankees, even if it's not the Yankees. It's not Aaron Judge, it's not Stan. They're missing a bunch of guys. We already went over that. But it's still, you get the feel of the Yankees. You get the vibe of, we just beat the Yankees, who are a good baseball team for the majority of the season.
Fenway's rocking. Granted, it's another World Cup crowd that's sparking that. The Germans going crazy there last night.
But the problem with all of that is as you just stated so eloquently a few minutes ago, the Red Sox are kind of bumbling into yet another trade deadline where they don't fully know what they are.
Yeah.
And you're going to keep a guy like Sonny Gray who would bring you back so much. And Sonny Gray is if you were to say, hey, design me the thing that's a perfect piece of trade bait. It would be a guy that's pitching really well. That's a starter, right? That's where you would start.
9-1.
And then you would say a guy who's relatively old, who probably doesn't have a whole lot left for your specific team, and so you don't feel like it's a win-win to trade him.
And he has control beyond this year, so that makes him even more valuable to the team acquiring him, meaning you're going to get more back for him.
Yeah, if you were to give me the perfect trade scenarios, Sonny Gray would pretty much check every single one of those boxes.
He would. Maybe like big game, big market performance, because the one time he was really in that with the Yankees in the playoffs, he kind of shied away from the attention and it went sideways on him.
Yeah. And but last night, Sunday Night Baseball, streaming.
Certainly this season probably isn't under the same microscope that he would be in a normal Red Sox season, but he has been amazing. 9-1, 2.69 the ERA for the year, 2.14 for the month. And that's the thing. He's only getting better the closer we get to the deadline. 1 earned run in his last 2 starts, 20 strikeouts in 14 and a third innings.
Yeah. Like you've been gifted a huge trade asset that you won't feel bad about trading because he's 34, about to be 35.
I thought he was older than that.
Maybe he's already 35. I thought he was 34 when they dealt to him. So I guess it just depends on when his birthday is. I believe that's true.
No, he's 36.
Even better. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes when it's a guy like 29 or 30 and he's about to get a new contract, like John Lester, like you deal him because you feel like you have to in the moment, but you feel bad about it because you know like you're trading away a guy who could be a valuable piece for another 5 or 6 years. Sonny Gray ain't that.
Yeah, this is probably as good as he will be the rest of his career, right? So you want to sell high.
This is perfect, and yet because they all of a sudden won 4 games against the Yankees, and maybe they put together a longer streak, and they feel like they're closer to that third wild card that I'm beginning to hate. All of a sudden, you talk yourself into needing to keep Sonny Gray to keep your playoff hopes alive. And I just fear that is the worst possible thing because come August and September, when they're no closer, because if you're talking about like the King of the Hill game you played as a kid, you know what I mean, where you had like the mountain that got piled up with the snow from the plow, and you've got like 6 dudes and you're kind of in the middle of things and you feel like, hey, I could get to the top. It's a lot different when there's 6 guys in between you and the top as opposed to when there's nobody between you and the top. And right now, sure, they've moved closer to the wild card, but there's still so many teams between them that it just makes it infinitely harder. And so I hope that this doesn't give them the false bravado and confidence to actually try to be buyers. And I'm afraid that what's going to happen is ultimately they're going to stand pat and do nothing, just like they have the last few years, and that is the worst thing that could happen.
That was something that on my drive in here this morning on ESPN Radio, they were just running through like basically a take it or leave it segment coming off the weekend headlines, and one of them was about the Red Sox. Could this be a turning point, a resurgence in the season? You know, we've seen it before in 2004, what a sweep of the Yankees can do to turn around a year. And the point that they made was one that clearly no one on that portion of the show had paid any attention to the season, because they were like, well, you look at where they were in the standings when they got rid of Cora and now they're starting to climb back. No, they've actually fallen further away from any sort of postseason contention than where they were at that time. So that's just a complete made-up narrative coming off a 4-game sweep where you're trying to pull anything out of you-know-where to...
You're 10 games under 500.
Yeah, no. They've actually dug a deeper hole in the 2 months since Can and Cora, but like, if you're actually paying attention to this team, you know that this weekend it was the aberration of what's happened lately. It was out of the blue. It was not building to something to this point. This is the longest win streak they've had this year. Just happened to be a series sweep. It's the first time all year they've won 4 games in a row.
Yeah. So that is my fear, is not that they convince themselves to be full buyers, but that they simply convince themselves to not do anything, which is what we have seen for 4 years in a row now.
Yep.
And that is, doing nothing is the worst thing you can do at the Major League Baseball trade deadline when you're the Boston Red Sox. And I can't wait for them to try to convince us that the third catcher from the Blue Jays, what was that guy's name?
Danny Jansen.
Like, he's the right-handed bat that we so desperately need. He's going to turn this thing around, and we're going to be a playoff contender because we got him at the deadline, and we bought guys.
It's been year after year of being real cute. Last time they went out there and did anything was Kyle Schwarber in 2021, and they went to within 2 games of the World Series after it with him at the top of the lineup.
By the way, Kyle Schwarber, first man in baseball to hit 30 home runs this season.
Yeah, it's not July.
No. And Pete Alonso, who I had some friends who, you know how vehement I was to get him on this team, were kind of making fun of me early in the year because he was not playing particularly well for the Orioles. All I'm going to say is go look at his numbers now.
Heating up a little bit?
Yeah. I believe he's at 19 home runs, and he's, plenty of RBIs, 250 average. He's right exactly where you'd think he would be.
Yeah, but we
got playing good defense,
we
too.
got Yoshida at the top of the lineup.
Yeah.
He took Cole deep on Saturday, Aaron. It's all pointing up.
Yeah.
All pointing up.
Great. Brought to you by Greenway Equipment, your locally owned John Deere dealer. See the Smith brothers in Bangor and Ellsworth because nothing runs like a deer. Here's a narrative. I can't wait. They don't need a trade deadline acquisition because they're going to get Trevor Story back soon, guys.
And Marcelo Mayer, and maybe Roman Anthony, and maybe Garrett Crochet, or maybe we just see none of them again this year.
Yeah. Like if someone tries to sell me that Trevor Story, I can't even say the words. We need to go to break. Anyway, we're also brought to you by Make Delivery through Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. 2 sausage McMuffins with egg, 2 hotcakes, 4 hash browns, 4 small hot coffees, all for just $19.99. The bundle deal, 40% off for a limited time. Order at your local family-owned McDonald's on Main Street, Union Street in Bangor, and Wilson Street in Brewer to get those great deals. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk some NBA. Welcome back to The Drive here on 92.9 The Ticket, brought to you by Heroes Sports Grill and Entertainment Center. Heroes is the place to be in downtown Bangor and at heroesportsgrill.com. Now, Mark, your car is a little bit older, so this might not track with what your experience is, but when I get into my car, I have CarPlay, so it pops up with all my things from my phone, and generally one of the things that's on the screen is my GPS. Sometimes it will give me suggestions on where to go.
Yeah, my phone does that every time I get in the car.
Okay, but your car doesn't tell you it, though, does it? Or does it?
No, my car, it's got a screen, it's got a backup camera, but I mean, at this point, it's 10 years old. I think it's a dinosaur.
I was going to say. And so I get into my car, and I'm driving here, and my car on my dashboard is saying, driving to Heroes, be there in 5 minutes.
Thinks you're going to Heroes after last Sunday.
I think it wanted me to go to Heroes, and I thought, yeah, I would like that.
Well, I think we have our remotes from Heroes coming up in the summer months here.
Yes, we do. So I'm excited about that. But my car wanted me to eat well tonight. So I wanted to eat well as well. But here I am in the Greenway Equipment Studios where food is, I guess if I wanted, there's some snacks over in that thing that are kind of old.
Yeah, I'll check the date on them.
Yeah. Also brought to you by Premium Choice Broadband. Premium Choice Broadband, local, family-owned, bringing affordable, high-speed internet to Maine for over a decade. Call or email and mention PCB the Ticket to get 1 month free. For new residential customers, visit premiumchoicebroadband.com for details. And once you get that high-speed internet, you can check out the 2026 Ticket Awards, as Mark mentioned. They are available on demand, 35 categories of excellence in the 25-26 sports season. Watch it at 929theticket.com, the Ticket app, or on YouTube. It's available on all 3 locations. So NBA rumors flying. The free agency period begins tomorrow, and we're going to really avoid the Celtics for the most part because it's kind of all quiet on that front and focus on what other teams might be wanting to do.
Yeah, I mean, the big rumors of the day, you have Draymond Green out in Golden State reportedly declining his $27.7 million player option to become a free agent. This, according to Shams, gives Golden State the financial flexibility to try to bring in LeBron James in free agency and Anthony Davis via trade to create or form a big four that would be quite the geriatric
I was
big
going to
four.
say
at
the
this
retirement home of veterans. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, they might as well go out and get like Joel Embiid too.
This kind of reeks of, what was it, like 2-3 years ago at this point when the Lakers rolled into a new season with LeBron and Russell Westbrook and like their own aging ancient roster.
Or if you want to go even further back than that, do you remember when, I think it was in the Kobe years when they brought in like Gary Payton and Karl Malone?
COVID years. That was like the early two. Kobe years. I was like, Aaron, the COVID time is messing with your brain by about 2 decades there.
Kobe years.
Yeah. No, it's I mean, you would have Al Horford at 40 years old coming off the bench as the sixth man on that team too, because he just re-signed on a 2-year deal out there. So that's kind of what we were talking about late last week, right? Of Brad Stevens, his motivation is to avoid being in that position where you're the team grasping at straws, trying to remain relevant.
Yeah. And that's frankly, that is all the Warriors have right now is straws, because they have a superstar in Steph Curry, who when he's on the court is still one of the most valuable players in the game, but the pieces that are around him and the things that he requires to stay healthy it just doesn't work anymore. And so like LeBron is LeBron, like he's going to go out there and he's still going to be a good basketball player. Like I don't think we're not going to see the dramatic decline like we did with Jordan and the Wizards when it comes to LeBron. I feel like it's a slow and steady type of thing and management.
In the right situation, he can still be pretty good, as was the case last year when he was basically the third wheel. Like playoffs, he was still putting up the numbers, but clearly when it was left up to him and on his shoulders, wasn't going to get it done at that point in the season.
Now, trying to talk yourself into Anthony Davis, I mean,
why?
I guess if it's cheap, right? If the talent you have to deal is cheap, and I can't imagine the Wizards expect to get much for him at this point.
And now the other rumor from today is that Kawhi Leonard could be looking to come back to the East, head back to one of his former stops in Toronto. Who knows if that's got anything to do with like the investigation going on? I believe the IRS or the DOJ or someone big that is involved in the government is looking into how his contract went out there in LA, right? Because they were trying to circumnavigate the salary cap and get around everything that they're supposed to be doing.
So going and living in Toronto, and you think Canada won't?
No, I think that's an easy dot to connect that probably doesn't need to be connected in this sense. But
no,
what would that do to the Eastern Conference, to the power structure, if he comes back to Toronto, a team that actually has rebuilt itself pretty quickly here?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you get from Kawhi Leonard, right? If you get the guy last year, well, crap, that's a good basketball team, like really fast. If you get the guy from the previous years before that plays 30, 40, 50 games and can't stay on the court, well, then, that's tough on you because you gave up some assets to get him. So it really depends solely on his health. And that's another guy that's aging. I don't know the answer there, but last year, I mean, he was an MVP candidate last year for the Clippers. He was that good.
Like 35 at this point? Because he's
remember,
he came on the scene stopping LeBron in Miami. Like with the Spurs, right? His defensive stopping performance got him finals MVP, and that was back when LeBron was with the Heat.
Yeah, and that's when everyone was losing their mind about how big his hands were. That was the big deal, and then he went to Toronto, won his title there.
He's been around for a minute.
Yeah, he has been. That's for sure. Hey, we're brought to you by Union Street Towing. They've got you covered 24/7 straight wide from breakdowns to lockouts. They'll get you moving fast. Call 942-4200. That's Union Street Towing, driven to be there when you need them most. And by Bangor Mall Cinema, Greater Bangor's favorite hometown theater for over 40 years. Luxury recliners and upgraded food menu. Find showtimes. Reserve your seat at yourneighborhoodtheater.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, Adam Kaufman of ESPN Radio. Welcome back to The Drive, brought to you by Fat Panda Boba Tea and Market on Harlow Street in Bangor, next to Goslin's Bakery. Sip fresh boba, explore snacks, ramen, and their tasty Jamaican patties. Also visit their brewer location, Wilson Street, next to Hannaford. Also brought to you by Dairy Queen of Old Town, the DQ $7 chicken strip meal deal. It's got it all. 100% white meat, seasoned chicken strips, full-size fries, a drink, and a DQ sundae, all for just $7. Visit 613 Stillwater Avenue in Old Town. Let's go to our Heroes hotline now to check in with Adam Kaufman. Now, Mark, you were dialing in Adam Kaufman. Were you calling the actor Adam Kaufman?
I was not. Adam Kaufman is probably a rare breed in 2026 that still has a home line, which I was calling only to find out that, Adam, you are joining us from the Pine Tree State.
I am hanging out in Maine for a little bit, so it's wonderful to be among you. I do love it here.
What part of Maine?
In the Kennebunkport area, actually.
Okay.
So I haven't quite gotten the invite over to Walker's Point, but I'm going to see what I can do.
All right, good enough. So if you need any recommendations off air, we can help you out as well. But you probably have a good trip planned, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. Yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Down in the bougie part of the state.
The bougie part. Is that what we're calling it now?
Well, northern Massachusetts.
Mark, jeez, come on, man. All right, so let's talk some Celtics as we start things off. You just heard right there Vince Goodwill of ESPN saying that the Celtics seem to be okay with everything that has happened regarding Jaylen Brown and, being in his feels and all the trade rumors and things. And I guess first, do you buy that narrative that they're quote unquote okay with everything? And then B, if they are okay with it, what does that say about their relationship and how they feel about him?
Clearly, there's a lot to unpack there. I would say to the first part, it's not a secret they've been shopping him. I mean, he was heavily involved, obviously, or heavily linked to the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors before he wound up going to Miami. But the dealings were not secretive, sort of playing themselves out in the media. Now, to what degree Boston truly was invested, hard to say. Clearly didn't want to match the lengths of which Pat Riley went to, but I just, I hear all this reporting and I hear all the, different things that, has been out there that people are speculating, and I really want to hammer that word home. It is speculation because historically Brad Stevens, as he has been president of basketball operations, it's been a very different line of communication than it was when Danny Ainge was in the role, let's say. Danny was, out there leaking things like crazy to writers, to agents, to various people in the media himself. They work in the shadows, in this current administration with Brad and Mike Zarin and everyone else involved in basketball ops, to where you think back over the last few years and you'd be hard-pressed to come up with a time that the Celtics have been linked to a guy and they went out and got the guy. More often than not, it's someone that we weren't even thinking of, that, all of a sudden he's a Celtic. People weren't talking about Kristaps Porzingis, for instance, a few years back. It just came out of nowhere. And I think that, honestly, over the course of time, kind of led me to be very skeptical of the Giannis rumors to begin with. Now, were they interested? Did they make an offer? Sure. But again, to what degree were they interested? So all that long preamble just to say, I don't know exactly where sort of Brad and company, and I'll just, use him as the figurehead, come down on the Jaylen Brown front. You can, and we've heard this, you can look at some of the individual play, and he's coming off a career year, and he's a former finals MVP, and he was the top 6 MVP vote getter, could have been first team All-NBA last year, all of these things, and helping the team, to dramatically overachieve in the regular season before flaming out as they did in the first round of the playoffs against the Sixers. But it's undeniable, at least in some of these spots that you look at, and these are not advanced metrics, but you look at just on-off splits, the team is not always dramatically better and is sometimes worse, quite frankly, when Jaylen is on the floor. This is just a fact. Now, that doesn't make him a bad team player, a bad individual player, anything like that, but I think the team is recognizing, hey, maybe in this current climate of this CBA as it exists, pivotal to be under the second apron. That's why they made the moves they made this time last year to get under that, and even during the regular season as well. And that's following around teams like recent champs, like the Knicks, the Thunder. They're making moves to avoid that second apron and all the penalties that come with it also. But on top of that, is it really fiscally responsible to build a team that is led by 2 supermax players occupying 70% of your salary cap versus having a more balanced roster? So rather than building around the Jays, should they just be building around JT, Jason Tatum? And, I think these are the internal conversations that are going on right now. And it's not easy, but what I tend to believe, and I don't know this to be a fact, but what I tend to believe is, Brad and company are working with Jaylen and his team, his representation, and everything has been probably fully communicated throughout. I think if this were happening behind Jaylen Brown's back, you would have a real problem to where you say, okay, they have to move on. They can't possibly reconcile. These sides could never come together again. I think what's probably happening is they've had conversations dating back weeks, months about, okay, this is what we're looking to do on our end. You are going to be part of these rumors. You're going to hear your name out there. This is happening. You are being shopped a little bit. We're certainly taking calls on you for others that are conceivably interested. But on top of that, maybe Jaylen is also open to going to a different situation where he is the alpha. He's the guy. It's always going to be Batman and Robin so long as Jason Tatum is healthy and available. It's always going to be 1A, 1B. It's never going to be his team. He may want that. He has certainly suggested a number of times that he wants that. So I think as long as these two sides are working in tandem, all of this ultimately will play itself out, and we'll find out if there is a likely suitor out there. But I think these are the things that they're working through right now.
To paraphrase from Zach Lowe, I think he was appearing on Bill Simmons' podcast over the weekend. He said, either the Celtics are at this point okay with getting a lesser player back in return for Jaylen Brown or trying to squeeze the toothpaste back into the tube. Do you think that that's still a possibility? Because like you're talking about, Adam, this is all speculation to this point. Can we envision a future where Jaylen Brown is wearing a Celtic uniform next year and not somewhere else?
Yeah, I absolutely can. Again, there have been a number of very negative things said about Jaylen Brown in recent days, weeks, various reports, the whole Bobby Marks thing the other day with the, he had heard that analytics view Jaylen Brown as the 7th best player on a team. I mean, just outlandish comments to where Jaylen feels like he needs to go on social media and push back and respond, and he's done so a number of times on his Twitch streams as well. I think that, again, as long as both sides have been handling this with transparency, as I tend to believe, Brad being the straight shooter that he is, they have been, then I think everyone is well aware that, hey, this could end with him being a Hawk or a Pelican or a Blazer or whoever it is, or this could end with him being back in Boston in a good situation that, we know that he and Jason Tatum are not close. They're not enemies. They don't dislike each other. They're just kind of more coworkers, right? I mean, they don't necessarily hang out. They live very different types of lives, especially with the fact that, Jason has 2 kids. He's kind of, he gets out. He certainly has his superstar party life a little bit with the, Michael Rubin white party and all that stuff, but he's also living that dad life a little bit, and Jaylen's traveling the world, and he's speaking at conferences, and he's, giving lectures at MIT and Harvard. They're different dudes, and that's okay. That's not a criticism. They've embraced that for about a decade. It's worked pretty damn well, to the point of, winning a championship a couple of years ago, and it feels like almost annually being in at least the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think you can absolutely look at this and say, okay, there's been a lot of negative commentary again around Jaylen Brown, but I'll tell you what, none of that has been said or even intimated by the Boston Celtics. It's all noise from elsewhere. So it's not crazy to think you could have, honestly, a very, very motivated Jaylen Brown coming back in a Celtics uniform next season.
Speaking of guys that may be motivated next year, a little bit of breaking news that's going to take us away from where we probably planned on this conversation going. Mark, are you going to hit it? That's all. We don't need any more than that for this one. It maybe like 3 years ago would have been a bigger, we would have had more of the open, but at this point I think it's a much smaller fries than that. Ja Morant has been traded to the Portland Trail Blazers. Jeremy Grant going back over to the Memphis Grizzlies. Jeremy Grant, of course, widely speculated as part of a deal that somehow Portland could offer to the Celtics, though I never really bought that particular iteration of anything. But I'm curious for your thoughts on Ja Morant and just really quickly what's happened there in terms of his star.
Yeah, Portland's going back in time and chasing the old Jailblazers days, right? Bringing in Ja with all the issues that he's had. But look, I mean, a fresh start, clear. He was not going to be back in Memphis, so a fresh start is crucial for him. I think what you look at with that team, though, and, my first instinct when I saw it was, okay, does this mean that a potential deal involving the Celtics and Blazers is dead? Not necessarily, honestly, because, to me, it wasn't really the Grant thing. It was more, I mean, especially with Ja and the move they just made, they got a lot of guards. There are a lot of guards there in Portland. And, Jaylen, obviously, yeah, he can play that, but being more of a wing, could there be the Drew Holiday return paired with Donovan Clingan and a bevy of first-round picks? And is that something that could wind up happening? So I wouldn't close the door. Obviously, he's been increasingly linked to Portland in, recent days. But again, I just go back to what I said at the beginning. The more you hear about something under the Brad Stevens regime, the less likely it is to be true, at least until, proven otherwise. So, yeah, I'm not convinced he's going elsewhere. For Portland, I mean, that team isn't going anywhere, at least not right now. I mean, Ja can kind of, if Ja even, sees the floor for a half or 3/4 of the season at that point in time, we'll see what, how much he's able to kind of turn back the clock a little bit performance-wise. Certainly he's not old and incapable. He's, still a young guy. It's just, finding that motivation to stay on the floor has been troubling for him.
You mentioned in an earlier answer, Adam, how it's always going to be Batman and Robin when it comes to Tatum and Brown, at least with the Boston Celtics. And it seems that in speaking his mind recently on social media, Jaylen has spoken back at that. He shared a video talking about how he's actually always been the Celtics' best player over this time, and how it seems like some of what he has said is maybe hinted at the fact that we know that he would like to lead his own NBA franchise, right? I guess what I'm asking to you is, do you think anything that he's done so far on social media or on the Twitch streams has been detrimental to his relationship with the Celtics, really any more so than them dangling his name out there in reverse?
I don't know if it's been detrimental to his relationship with the Celtics, but it's certainly been detrimental to public perception. I think Jaylen is a very intelligent, very intentional guy, and so he's not acting without intent here. I just think what he's doing is foolish. I think someone's got to, take the phone away. There's just no advantage in a general sense. And I'm not even saying this about Jaylen specifically. I think this is true of most people. That's just getting into a war of words with the media or trying to do so and letting it play out in the media. You're almost never going to come out of that looking good. And he's not right now. He's looking like a crybaby. Every little report that comes out that is anti-Jaylen Brown, he is feeling the need to respond to it publicly on social media. And he's tweeting out, no player has won more games, regular season playoffs combined in the 10 years since I've entered the league. All right, well, listen, that's true. And he has absolutely had a hand in that. But he's also played alongside a superstar for most of those years, a very durable one, at least before this past season. So it has been a group effort. Jaylen has not done this by himself. He has not done this as an alpha of any of those teams before last year. So, while it's important, and there's no statistic in sports that is more important than winning, to suggest that he's the one most responsible for that, which is, again, the suggestion of the tweet, I just think is a bad idea, and it just looks bad. And, the whole state your sources thing with Stephen A. Smith first and then Bobby Marks next, again, he's just not doing himself any favors. So, I don't think I think people are making too much of a deal about the Jason Tatum hasn't come out to support him publicly. Well, I mean, when he was linked in trade rumors a couple of years back, because he has been multiple times throughout his tenure as a Celtic, Tatum didn't do that then either. Again, I think the two of them are fine. I think they are perfectly fine, but they are not the best of friends. They are guys that get along well in general and on the floor, and that's most important. They're not adversaries. They're not at one another. This wasn't like, Kobe and Shaq jawing at each other publicly, or how many other examples can you come up with? So I don't worry about it, but I just, again, to repeat myself, I just don't think he's doing himself any favors right now.
How do you think it's viewed internally by Brad Stevens and the Celtics organization, especially when you compare it to the other superstar that's in the building? Jason Tatum really doesn't respond to anything like you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, hard for me to say, obviously, and anything that I say is purely speculation because I don't have this, I don't have a personal relationship with Brad, but I would imagine, at least again, if it were me, I'd be thinking, like, just sit a couple plays out, and this isn't like a shut up and dribble thing. Like, Jaylen, like, by all means, speak out, speak your truth, do everything. Like, I think he is a far more interesting and fascinating person off the court than he is on the court. And he's a hell of a player on the floor. I just think that in this particular situation over the last few weeks, and this, like, even, I'm not even fully lumping it in with the going at it with Nike and Team USA after getting snubbed from an Olympic position and all of these things, but it's just, there's a pattern, right? There's a pattern of him constantly feeling like he needs to stick up for himself, advocate for himself, because if I won't, who will, kind of thing. And at a certain point, like, I don't think that's a bad idea, but at a certain point, I think it gets to be just a little much probably for people that are, out there observing it. And I'm sure Brad would love for some of that stuff to just kind of stay behind closed doors, because I believe, anyway, the Celtics value him and know how valuable he is and what kind of player he is and what kind of person, more importantly, he is. And there's a reason this guy has been around as long as he has and is a future Hall of Famer, and how we'll have his, number up in the rafters one day. But some of this is just a little bit of a distraction because the media noise, I mean, you guys know, like, you do it. I do it. We, like anyone who does what we do it. We're spreading the gossip and talking about it and reporting on it or reacting to it. And it's just, it's noise, and it's the social media cesspool, and everyone's got an opinion, and most people are just guessing and not actually informed. And that is what it is. But, that's what we do. That's what we get paid to do to a degree. Jaylen would be better served to ignore it as best he can. I think right now he is feeling an incredible level of disrespect. He's a guy that, certainly believed that he should have been higher up in the MVP conversation last year, should have been first team All-NBA, and should be viewed universally as a top 10 player in this league. And he's not. He's a top 15 to 25 player, let's say, who's coming off a top 10 season. And that is different than the way we talk about his running mate, Jason Tatum, and that's probably a bit frustrating to him.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Of course. Happy to do it.
Adam Kaufman of ESPN Radio right there, and I like the way he put that at the end. It's speak your truth, but maybe not every second of every day and respond to every single thing.
Speak your truth over what matters. What other people think of you at a certain point doesn't.
Stephen A. said something, you spoke your truth back at him, you leave it. And not back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's, too much. Brought to you by Madden Generator Services, expert installation, dependable maintenance, and free 7-year warranty on new Generac installs. They'll keep your home in the game. Call 951-4668, Madden Generator Services, power you can count on. Also brought to you by Casella, good pay, good people, good life. Find your place of power of hard work. We all have those friends, right? That they say something that they want to be heard, and then everyone else around them acknowledges it, and then they want to move on to something else, but that person feels like they haven't been heard yet, so they just keep saying it over and over. And then that person, sometimes you're like, let's not invite him to the next barbecue.
Yeah, what can be lost on certain people is that opinions are like other things that we all have, right?
Yeah.
We all got them.
We all have them, and you can say them, but don't just berate us with them is what I'm saying. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, it's the Drive at 5 drive poll coming up in a little bit. We've got Bob Nightingale of USA Today, Sox props, and much, much more.